Welcome back to Forza Will 101. Today's lesson, game phases. In Forza Will, there are 4 main game phases, and each one has a specific set of allowable actions and steps that are performed in a specific order. These phases are the draw phase, the recovery phase, the main phase, and the end phase. It's important before we get started to understand that anytime triggers occur or any priority sequence happens, it gives both players an opportunity to create a chase. However, only cards with quick cast or activate abilities can be played during those sequences outside of the main phase. For the draw phase, the first step is to perform any beginning of the draw phase triggers, or any at the beginning of the game triggers if it's the first draw phase of the game. Also, any beginning of the turn triggers occur at this time. Next, there is a priority sequence, after which the turn player draws a card from their main deck. Unless, of course, it is the first turn of the entire game, then that player skips their first draw. Then there is another priority sequence before moving to the recovery phase. For the recovery phase, if it is the first turn of the turn player, it is skipped. When completing the recovery phase, first any beginning of the recovery phase triggers occur, then there's a priority sequence. Next, all produced will ceases to exist, and then the turn player recovers all cards under their control. Any at the end of recovery phase triggers happen at this moment, a priority sequence is completed, and then the game is moved to the main phase. For the main phase, it starts with any at the beginning of the main phase triggers, and once that concludes, the turn player regains priority and can take any number of actions. We'll go more in depth to the actions that can be taken in the main phase in the next video, so for now just know that before moving to the end phase, there is another priority sequence. For the start of the end phase, any at the beginning of the end phase triggers occur, followed by a priority sequence. After that, any end of the turn triggers happen, and another priority sequence occurs. As a final step, the following actions are taken in this order. All damage on resonators or J-rulers becomes 0. All continuous effects applied until the end of the turn end. All produced will ceases to exist. If the turn player has more than their maximum hand size of cards in their hand, they must choose cards and discard down to their maximum hand size. If any rules, processes, or abilities are triggered, a priority sequence is completed, and then you return to the beginning of these final steps. The player not currently the turn player becomes the new turn player after all of these steps are completed, and the next turn starts. That does it for this episode. Feel free to click the video on the screen to go to the next lesson, or click on a video in the playlist to jump ahead. Until then though, class dismissed.